بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد مولاي محمد وآله وأزواجه وذريته وإترته أجمعين. We continuing reading of Iqbal's Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam, and last time we had stopped here, this larger whole. So the larger whole he's talking about here is reference to his discussion in the previous lines, and the discussion was about contextualism, that you cannot understand particular piece of reality or sentence of a language without a reference to a larger whole, without a reference to the background assumptions. This is a general moderate form of conceptualism, but what Iqbal seems to be talking about is rather the extreme form of that contextualism, that is the Hegelian form, where the larger whole is the whole reality. Whatever it may be, doesn't make much difference at this point, but let us start from here. This larger whole is to use a Quranic metaphor. I'm not sure why he's calling it metaphor, because it is not a metaphor as far as we know it. It is meant in its literal sense, but it doesn't refer to something we know, but it refers to another realm. So we don't know its reality, but that doesn't make it a metaphor. Now that's a minor point, so I don't want to dwell on it. So this larger whole is, to use a Quranic metaphor, is a kind of preserved tablet which holds up the entire undetermined possibilities of knowledge. Undetermined possibilities of knowledge. As a present reality, revealing itself, that's important as well. Revealing itself, or manifesting itself, or expressing itself in serial time as a succession of finite concepts. That's again important, concepts. Appearing to reach a unity which is already present in them. So basically he's reading preserved tablet, or Mahfuz, I'll come to that, as a Hegelian Geist, really. Hegelian Geist, Hegelian infinitude, or infinite. You can call it a spirit or total thought, or whatever you want to call it. And Iqbal has been talking in terms of Hegelian infinite Geist without naming him, really. So he's totally owning Hegelian thought at this point. And now he's trying to give it an Islamic legitimacy or interpretation. And that's one of the key characteristics of Islamic modernism, or Muslim modernism, in that they pick up certain strands within modern thought, which they think are Islamically sound, and then try to justify them with reference to the Quran or the Islamic text. But in doing that, obviously they have to reinterpret Quran, which is not illegitimate in itself. But if that reinterpretation doesn't follow the basic principles of interpretation, like the Quranic language should be interpreted in a way in which it is possible to interpret it. And by Quranic language, we mean the language of the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And the meaning should be contextually plausible, and it shouldn't contradict or oppose other part of the Quran or the agreed upon Islamic teachings and all that. So that's what he is doing, and so that's one of the key characteristics of Islamic modernism or Muslim modernism. And obviously Iqbal here is working as a prototype of a Muslim modernist or Islamic modernist. So this is a key insight or key insight about Islamic modernism or Muslim modernism is that. So the key insight about Islamic modernism or Muslim modernism is that they pick a certain strand within modernism. For example, Hegelian here, for Iqbal, Hegelian thought here, or parts of Hegelian thought, and then which they think that correspond to or represent the spirit of Islam. And then justify or legitimize this strand or this strand of modernity with reference to the text in such a way that often you have to distort the text in order to make it speak the language of modernity. So here it seems like Iqbal is reading Mahfuz, that is the preserved tablet, almost as Hegel's Geist, or spirit. And for Hegel, Geist or spirit is all that there is. There's nothing else. So in that sense, spirit is infinite. And Iqbal is interested in this aspect, that he thinks that there is an infinite potential within the thought, which can help him overcome what he seems or what he thinks is the Ghazalian limitation on thought. So let's see how. It's very interesting, and it seemed to me that he understands Lahul Mahfuz well, but how that can be connected with Geist, in what way it can be connected with Geist, and what way it cannot be connected with Geist, and that will show us some, at least implicit differences, and those are key differences, I think, between Iqbal and Hegel. So to go back to the text, this larger whole is, to use a Quranic metaphor, is a kind of preserved tablet which holds up the entire undetermined possibilities of knowledge. Well, we'll come to that, because it shouldn't be possibilities of knowledge if he's talking about the actual Lahul Mahfuz. It's more like possibilities of being, because Lahul Mahfuz, among other things, is the record of the possibilities. Ilmullah, the possibilities in Ilmullah, in God's knowledge about certain part of our universe, because we can't say that Lahul Mahfuz in any sense limits God's knowledge or his creation or its possibilities. By his creation mean his creative acts. So anyway, possibilities of knowledge as a present reality, revealing itself in serial time as a succession of finite concepts appearing. Again, this is very Hegelian concept, finite concepts. So if Lahul Mahfuz is the record of God's knowledge about the future possibilities, from that it doesn't follow that those future possibilities are there in terms of concepts. So that's a Hegelian reading of appearing to reach a unity. Now, the history has unity in Hegel because it is the expression of a single Geist. It's an expression of, so whatever there is, that totality, that being, that spirit, that Geist is realizing, manifesting itself in various ways, and sum total of those manifestation is history. So the unity is provided by the fact that those manifestations are the manifestation of a single being or single thought or whatever it is. But the unity of God's knowledge and the unity of being based on those possibilities is God's creative act itself and God's will itself, not the self-expression of something called Geist. Anyway, so revealing itself in serial time as succession of finite concepts appearing to reach a unity which is already present in them. So that's we have just quickly gone through the text, just the reading of the text. But now it's time to sort of compare Hegel's conception of Geist, Hegel's conception of Hegel's contextualism, and Iqbal's attempt to reinterpret it or justify it in terms of God's knowledge of the future possibilities in his kingdom, which are written in his book Kitab, which is Mahfuz. So we need to compare these two concepts now. Perhaps the best way to understand this contrast between Geist and preserved tablet is to try to understand Hegel's conception of God. Because that will give us a clear indication of where Hegel's thought is totally opposed to the Islamic concepts. Concept of God. So to start with, we should remember that for Hegel, these terms like God, absolute idea, absolute spirit, Geist, infinite, is or are related concepts. Okay, but let's start with God, because that will make the job of differentiating between the Islamic concepts and the Hegelian concept easier. Okay, so for Hegel, God is very important. In fact, God for him is the subject matter of philosophy. In that he is, again, closely following his master Aristotle, in that for Aristotle as well, the first philosophy is theology, because in theology you study theos, that is God, which is the highest being. But the name God in Aristotle's philosophy obviously shouldn't mislead us as the name God or der Gott. Gott in German, der Gott. Shouldn't mislead us in Hegel, because the main thing is not the name but the conception. You can have the same name but totally different conceptions. So the concept of God is central to Hegel's philosophy. That's the first thing. In fact, Hegel writes somewhere that God and God alone is the truth. That's totally in line with what Quran says, that one of the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Haq, the truth. Yeah. So in that sense, God is the truth, and the only truth in that sense. But what is your conception of truth again? That is important. What is your conception of God? Conceptions are important. Not just the words. You can use the same words but mean totally different things. So I think well, just starting, probably it's best to just stop here, and in the next session we will just go straight into Hegel's concept of God. And then once we have Hegel's conception of God, we will see what is preserved tablets, and then we will be able to judge whether Iqbal's reinterpretation or justification of Hegel's conception of God based on Hegel's conception of thought and infinite and knowledge is justified on the basis of is justified or not. Okay, see you in the next session.